Do we expect our writers and producers, when they're casting two-count skin complexions, do we expect them to say, okay, we have at least one dark-skinned Black woman in the show, we're good to go? Is that enough? Welcome to Puffs of Thought. I've recently watched #BlackAF on Netflix, and I'm ready to get into it. Let's get started. Kenya Barris has created several well-known TV shows, including Blackish and its two spin-offs, Mixedish and Grownish. He's also been credited with writing for Soul Food and The Game and co-producing Little. Recently, with his new show, #BlackAF, he's been getting a lot of criticism. Some people believe that he supports colorism because his characters just lack a little diversity in the complexion department. Some of the backlash he's received in the past have been surrounding colorism as well. A lot of Blackish fans really question Rainbow, who is the leading lady in the show. She is the wife and mother of the family, and she is a biracial woman. Her mother is supposed to be a Black woman and her dad is supposed to be white. On Mixedish, which is the spinoff that explores Rainbow's childhood and her upbringing, they casted Tika Sumpter, a beautiful woman, but fans were concerned because the light-skinned Black woman that they saw on Blackish looks nothing like Tika Sumpter. And they wanted to know if this was a way of pacifying people and making them feel better about the lack of diversity on his shows, lack of diversity in complexion, rather. And so I decided to do a little digging and hear what Kenya Barris has to say with all of the backlash he's been getting. One quote I found was back in December 2019 when the show was announced to be released in 2020. There was a picture of the cast, including Kenya Barris, who's going to play the leading man, and the show was titled Black Excellence, and people called him out for colorism again. Here he was with a racially ambiguous wife who we know Rashida Jones is biracial and has a Black dad. However, people were still not pleased with her being of lighter complexion and the kids all ranging in lighter skin tones. It is important to add that when using a name like Black Excellence or #BlackAF to describe a show that doesn't hold any darker skin actors or actresses, it does feel like an intentional erasure, especially for darker skinned Black women because they often aren't represented in media. One of his quotes that I found: "Colorism is a divisive tool used by the powerful to separate the truly powerful. If you knew me, you would know how much that hurts. This Black family looks like mine." I found another quote that I think more fully encompasses exactly how he feels about the backlash he's been receiving. "Throughout my career, I've really been a proponent of diversity and representation, and I realize that people's experiences have been really harsh. I really understand that. I'm not going to count the shades of people that I've cast because that's not something I do. The thing that I was trying to make had a certain kind of tableau that I wanted to be a part of the show. So I really understand everyone's experiences and I know that it's real for them. But this was such a personal story. The biggest thing for me to do is to keep doing work so I can keep showing more versions of Black people and show how non-monolithic we are, show how many versions of us there are, and show all our different lanes." So here's my first impressions of the show. And I like the documentary feel, reality show feel of the show. It is scripted. It is based on Kenya Barris's life. The leading lady, Rashida Jones's character, is a lawyer, not an anesthesiologist. That's on Blackish. And Kenya Barris's wife is an anesthesiologist. And that's a parallel between his work and his real life. This wife is a lawyer, now turned stay-at-home mom. The dad, of course, is rich and in the media industry. There's mixed heritage kids. And the show attempts to tackle hot button issues and some cultural events in terms of the white gaze and trying to look like we belong, the adultification of Black girls, and Juneteenth were all discussed in #BlackAF. And for the most part, all of these themes are tackled in his scripted shows on ABC. One of my first thoughts when I began the series, knowing all the backlash that he's been receiving, and maybe this is a creative cap for where Kenya Barris is in his life right now. He succeeded with Blackish and their spinoffs. I personally watch Mixedish and Grownish, and it's very possible that his range is to write and speak about what he knows. And right now he knows about being a family man with mixed heritage kids. This may be something that is comforting, and a lot of artists, whether they be visual artists or they create work like this, they write from their experience. A poet writes from their experience. Songwriters write from their experience. Even if they get outside influence or a spur of creativity, it's very possible that this is where he is. Some people argue that on ABC Family, there is a level of censorship. I believe one show was not aired on Blackish, and that made Kenya Barris really upset. I'm not sure how legitimate those claims are, but some people believe that he went on to Netflix so that he can curse on the show, tackle topics that he wants to tackle, and have the free range to do that, where he typically wouldn't get that on a station network. So let's get into what this backlash is really about. This colorism conversation. Colorism is prejudice or discrimination, especially within a racial or ethnic group, favoring people with lighter skin over those with darker skin. And yes, Kenya Barris, it is because of slavery. We've seen that people who are of a lighter complexion or even white, their voices get amplified when they speak out against racial injustice in a way that darker skinned folks just don't get. If anything, those are the people you should be listening to. It's impacting them the most, but for whatever reason, people tend to clamor at the chance to hear someone of a lighter complexion say the very same thing. Often we see that mixed race children are fetishized. Mixed race people are fetishized, especially in our community. People seek out who they think is going to give them the most attractive child, and even in a way that you may not notice at first. I remember I was watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians many moons ago, and Kim had just become pregnant with North around that time. And Kim was talking with a friend, and she said, OMG, paraphrasing here, OMG, your baby is gonna be so cute. Look, it's gonna look like mine. Another white woman, who I'm assuming her husband was Black, and these racially ambiguous, curly-haired, light-skinned kids running around. And the way that the show was edited, Kim just stood there smiling, kind of awkwardly. Maybe in the back of her mind, she already knew that that statement was weird. It's like, the kid's not going to be cute because you're cute or because Kanye's cute, but it's going to be cute because your kid's going to look like this. It's weird. Oftentimes, mixed race people are seen as trophies to wear on a man's arm. And People say it's a preference, but oftentimes our preferences are conditioned. My preference for the kind of food that I like to eat is directly impacted to the way that I grew up. Some people have no tolerance for spicy food, and I love it. Some people consider snails a delicacy, and I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So is it really a preference, or is it just the way things are because it's familiar and it's what you know and it's what's been pushed for you? And oftentimes the messaging for Black women is that you're undesirable. It's difficult to find a mate, and that you have to open your pool of prospects if you hope to find someone to help you, to have children, to marry. And that means you have to date outside your race. And light-skinned women, those who are conscious enough to see it, often feel invisible in these relationships. They feel like they've been sought out, not because they're a human being, but because they're a status symbol, and they're not giving the ability to have a wide range of emotions and feelings and to be seen as an equal partner in this relationship. Interracial marriage is fairly new in the US. It wasn't legal in all US states until 1967. And even though interracial relationships have been happening for the beginning of time, it's still a really new phenomenon. And feeling invisible and fetishized as a light-skinned woman doesn't diminish the feeling of rejection and just plain ignorance that darker-skinned women have to experience in all aspects of their life, not just dating. I believe that the backlash has less to do with Kenya Barris and his creativity, or lack thereof, in storytelling, and really that we need a lot more stories. Black people, especially Black women, have been watching our likeness, I guess, change over time. On The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, when the darker-skinned Aunt Viv was replaced by a lighter-skinned Aunt Viv, the community really felt it. And there was a noticeable difference in the portrayal of the darker-skinned Aunt Viv as strong, creative, and no-nonsense, to a lighter-skinned Aunt Viv that wasn't quite memorable and barely had any influence on the seasons that she participated in. It's been feeling like erasure has been happening in the Black community and in our imagery. For a long time, we have not been seeing darker-skinned, non-ambiguous Black women on screen at the same capacity that we've been seeing things change. A lot of the young, aspiring actresses leading the way are of mixed race heritage, lighter complexion, curly hair, or just overall not identifiably Black if you look quickly at a first glance. And that hasn't been how it's always been. We've had shows like A Different World, we've had shows like Living Single, and although there were lighter skinned characters on that show, there were also darker skinned mothers, wives, and leading ladies that showed us that Black women can be desirable, beautiful, educated, and have a wide range of personality, just like anyone else. And that's missing. There's a lack of diverse stories today. Kenya Barris's repetitive storyline may be just that, a repetitive storyline. But I can't call him a colorist, and I can't quite say that it's his burden to bear to make sure that there's a diversity in creativity in Hollywood and that there's a range of creative stories being told. For him, this may be just a quick money grab. He's said that he's done it before, or rather his character, Kenya, has said that he has done quick money grabs before, just doing something that he knows that the people are going to buy into. A gatekeeper is anyone who works to allow, refuse, limit, redirect, support or hinder initiatives in a community. Some people argue that Kenya Barris has reached a level in his industry where he is now a gatekeeper, and that it's unfair for him to continue to write repetitive storylines when there are so many untold Black stories. Some that would give a range of complexions that make sense. He said it himself. His children aren't of darker complexion, so it wouldn't make sense for him to cast someone of a dark complexion in his children's likeness. There are so many creative, powerful, ambitious Black women who are killing the TV game right now. Issa Rae, Ava DuVernay, Shonda Rhimes, Lena Waithe. They are creating content with a range of skin complexions, storylines, and people that relate to women that I know, women that I hope to become, women that I can empathize with and understand. And I really think that that's where the future is for Black women in television and in movies. But if you think of someone like Issa Rae, someone who started out right here on YouTube, who didn't have the big name or the access, but had our support. Some of you were financially supporting this show long before Insecure was even thought of. And because of your support, when a door finally opened of opportunity, Issa Rae was able to walk through and tell a unique story that so many of you love. That's where the future is. I love Ava DuVernay's work. Queen Sugar, Lena Waithe has a new series called 20s. Shonda Rhimes, the Shonda Rhimes. I mean, this is where our attention needs to focus on. Black women, especially, who are feeling the effects of colorism, who are calling for other people to understand it, may have a hard time, because sometimes when things impact others differently, it's harder for them to empathize and to see where you're coming from. Do we expect our writers and producers, when they're casting, to count skin complexions? Do we expect them to say, okay, we have at least one dark-skinned Black woman in this show, we're good to go? Is that enough? We have to support diverse women if you want diverse stories, because in reality, these women are going to feel the impact in a way that I don't think a Kenya Barris has the capacity to understand. For him, maybe colorism hasn't affected him in the way that it's affected any of the women that I've named. It's very possible that those stories just don't speak to him. And the impact for different skin complexions is just different. For him to amplify this story doesn't mean that other stories have to be minimized. The reality is we're fighting over scraps. We need more diverse stories in media. We don't need to fight Kenya Barris to tell our story. We need to put people in positions of power so that they can tell diverse stories. Blackish is a great show. Mixedish and Grownish are some of my fave shows. And my conclusion, colorism is insidious. It's in every fabric of our society, and it's impacting Black women disproportionately, especially as it relates to us being represented in television and us having access, opportunities, how we operate in the workplace, and the list goes on and on. I'm not particularly attached to #BlackAF. I do think it's a good show, and I think that the story needs to be told, at least for Kenya Barris' sake, and for anyone else who has the ability to relate to that story. I will continue to watch Black shows, Black movies, and support diverse stories, and maybe even at Kenya Barris on Twitter and tell him to continue to financially, at least, support a range of artists, a range of voices and stories, that we continue to see diversity on our screen. So, my recommendation, quick and fast. Colorism is insidious and it's everywhere. And we all have to do the work to unlearn our unconscious bias and our conscious biases. And we have to continue to support diverse stories and diverse voices. If you see a great independent show, don't be afraid to subscribe financially even, and continue to watch. Maybe even at some of these big networks like ABC and Netflix, or people like Kenya Barris, and tell them that you want them to get behind this and support it and see it through if they can, and have empathy for the various Black experiences out there. And when someone is telling you that they've experienced colorism for themselves, to take it and believe it. It's hard out here, and we all just need each other. Thanks for watching.